In today's project, we're going to be making 3 gift bags using your pattern paper. Hi, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a fun Chop It Up inspired project to get you chopping up your pattern paper. Let's get into this project. The basic construction for all 3 of these projects are the same. The only difference will be the measurements, which will create different sizes of the box. So I'm just going to draw out a sort of sample template for us to use for this project. Once we're done scoring on all of the projects, you should have something that looks like this when you're done. Hopefully it's a little bit straighter than my template here. Okay, so that's the general idea. And then we'll be cutting bits and pieces away. So this square needs to be cut away. Rectangle, not square. And then this one here will need to be cut away. We'll just mark that so you know what you're cutting. This part here will have a slight angle. This part here will have a slight angle. And this part here is straight, cut away. Okay, and then here you're going to cut and create a slight angle to release these little flaps. And again, here. And a slight angle here. So that's the general outline, the general plan to create these bags. And I'm going to show you how to create this. So let's get into making the first project. We'll start with the biggest one. We'll start with the 12 by 12. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. And we'll start to make some scores in this paper. Now this is a single-sided paper. You're welcome to use double-sided if you like. For me, it doesn't really matter because the inside of the bag is going to be filled with treats and stuff, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Here's what we're doing. I'll just set that aside here. And our first score is going to be at 1 3/4. The second score at 5 3/4. And then 7 1/2. And then 11 1/2. I'm starting with my paper orientation upright. Okay, so if your pattern matters, just paying attention that this part will be sort of the back of the bag, and this will be our little flap that folds over, and then this will be the front. So just be mindful of that if you want to, if the pattern or orientation of your paper matters. So with my paper being upright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the paper 1 turn to the right so that this will be the bottom of my bag, and I will score at 1 3/4 and then at 9 inches. Okay, so we have everything scored. Now taking a look at our template, we're going to have to start cutting pieces away. So first up, I need to cut away this square. Now I'm cutting following along the score marks, and I'm cutting this score mark away. So we'll start on just the outside to the right of the score line and just follow along that score until I meet that intersecting score, and then come down and to the left of the score mark here, follow all the way down and cut. Okay, first piece is cut. Next, we need to cut away this whole section, leaving this intact. So once again, I'm going to the right of the score mark because I want to cut that score mark away, right down to the intersecting score line. Okay, and then I'm going to come and cut this whole section right off. So again, following on the right side of the score line, left side of the score line to cut away the score line, making sure that I'm good and straight. Now you can always come back and clean this up later if you don't get perfectly straight cuts. Okay, oh, I didn't cut down far enough here. There we go. So this piece is great for a tag if you want to make a tag and add it to the bag. As I had done in my sample here, I just added a little tag and I used my scrap to do that. So I'll set my scraps aside and save those for later. Now coming back to the template, I need to make a little angle cut on this 1/2 inch score here. So I'll do that, just a slight angle from the score to the edge of the paper. And then I'll do the same thing down here on this score, slight angle. And then I'm going to come in and cut this piece away, making sure that I get rid of the score line and I'm nice and straight. Okay. There we go. Now, next thing we need to do is release the tabs off of the bottom. So the larger pieces, we want to make sure that those ends stay nice and straight. The 1 3/4 inch pieces in the middle need to have a slight angle in them just to reduce the bulk a little bit. So this part here and this part here, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So this large part here, we're going to make sure that the score mark is I'm going to cut along the score mark nice and straight, just getting rid of the score line until we meet that intersecting score. So this is nice and straight. And now this part here, I can come in at a little bit of an angle to remove that extra piece there. So again, this part is staying nice and straight and this part is getting the angle. So I'll come here and I'll cut on the larger piece. I'm going to cut the score mark away right up to the intersecting score line. And then come in at a slight angle and cut that piece away. Okay, so now we've freed that little tab and it has little angle cuts in it. Same thing here, we're going to make sure that this part is nice and straight up to the intersecting score line. And then we'll cut a slight angle right here. And then just to finish it off, we're just going to cut a slight angle right here. Okay, so now you have your tabs released. Okay, you see that? This will be the bottom of our bag. So I'm going to go ahead and crease all of the folds now. I'll grab a bone folder and get all these score marks creased nice and good. And then all of the hard work is done. The rest will come together nice and easy. All right, so now I'm going to fold these pieces together. This is where we're going to apply adhesive to seal this bag up and make sure that it's nice and straight. So I'll put it together while it's flat so that once the glue adheres, everything is straight and then the box will be nice and straight. So I'm going to take some double-sided adhesive and apply down my little 1/2 inch strip here to close up the bag. And I'll just burnish that adhesive in and pull off the release paper. This is a stapler remover. I find this is really super helpful to pick up that release paper. It's really cool. I like this, using this for that. So we'll close this little flap, press everything in, give that adhesive a good burnish. Our bag is starting to form. Now, for this flap, we want to close this one last because this way the fold will be on the back side, so you won't see it. So we'll close this one last, which means that we'll put adhesive on this part, on the white part. Just a little bit extra. Make sure that I'm being generous so that my bag holds together nicely. I'll burnish that adhesive in. I'll come back to that in a second. Now, flip it over, and this flap here where there's no adhesive, we're going to apply adhesive right over the pattern part. Okay, I'll burnish that in, and I'll take off the release paper for this. Okay, now I'm going to fold that part down. Okay, take these little flaps and lay it onto that adhesive, just like that. Okay, and now I'll pull the release paper off of this adhesive. I have a small piece of my dog hair here. See if we can get that off. Well, looks like that's going to be a part of this bag. So excellent. I'm going to fold this up, making sure everything is good and straight. Flip it over and press in that adhesive. There we go. Okay, our bag is formed. Now you fill it full of your treats or whatever you want to put inside of here. And then we're just going to place our fingers in the middle of this part here and just give it a little pinch, making sure that it's, as even as possible. Little pinch, close that flap. Okay, there we go. If you want, you can score this and fold it so that the pattern sort of covers that white area, or you can just have an extra large flap. In my sample, I folded it because I thought it was cuter with a bit of a smaller flap. So I'm just going to grab my scoreboard real quick, and I'm going to score that little flap. I don't know where my score tool is. Okay, so we'll score it about one, oh, wrong way, about 1.5, just a notch over 1.5 so that there's no interference. Okay, so a notch over 1.5, fold that and apply a little bit of adhesive to close that up. We don't need much here, just enough to hold it in place. Okay, press that in. And now I like to round the corners of these little edges here. We'll get a corner rounder. Round the corners. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to pinch this sort of shut, close the flap. Okay, kind of work it in a bit. And now I'm going to grab a hole punch. So I'm going to punch a hole, I don't know, kind of in the center here. About there. Punch a hole. And then I'm going to grab some twine. So I'm going to feed my twine. Close everything up. I'm going to feed my twine through the back. Hold that there. Wrap this around the bottom. Back up to the top. Make sure I have enough twine for a nice little bow. Okay. And I'll cut this off. So this little jar of twine is something that I made. I found it super fun and useful. It has its own little scissors and a little spot to pull the twine out. I'll link to the video where I made this if you're interested. Okay, so now we have our twine and it's time to tie our bow. So this twine is a little stiff, so once I get it tied, it will be good. And this is also where you could add your little tag if you want. Add something cute on there. The bow is a little like all over the place. There we go. Okay. Stop fiddling with that now. All done. It's the best I'm going to get. And I'll just trim off these tails so that they're sort of even. And there we go. We have our large bag. So this bag ends up being, let's see, 4 inches by about 7.25. So 4 inches wide, 7.25 tall, and 1 3/4 in depth. Yeah. Okay. So that is our first bag using 12 by 12 paper. All right, let's move into the next project. Okay, our next bag, we're going to use an 8x8 sheet of paper for this. And the construction is the exact same way as the 12x12. The only difference is going to be the measurements. So I'll give you the measurements and then we'll put this bag together. So starting with your orientation, the way you want it, we'll score at 1 inch, 3 3/4, 4 3/4, and 7 1/2. And then we'll rotate our paper 1 turn to the right and score at 1 and at 6. Okay. All right. So now we'll do our cutting that lines up with our template. So starting on this corner, go. Now we'll crease our folds. If you want, you can round your flaps ahead of time so it's easier. Okay. Apply our adhesive on this strip here. Now, if you see that you didn't get that quite straight, you can always come back and just trim that portion away. There we go. All right, and now for the bottom, we're going to do the same thing. This part is going to go to the back. So we're going to apply adhesive on the white part here. Okay, and then flipping it over, this part, we're going to apply adhesive onto the pattern side. Okay, close in that flap first. Put your little flappies over and over. And now remove the release paper from here. And line that up so our box is nice and squared up. Okay, and then same goes for the front here. Do a little bit of a pinch. Hold down that flap. Flip it over and get ready to punch a little hole with our hole punch. We'll make it a smaller hole this time. So maybe about there. Okay, and for this part, because my coffee cup is sort of upside down, I wouldn't mind using a leftover scrap. So here we go. So there's a nice coffee cup from our leftover scrap that I can put on the front here. So I'm gonna maybe just cut this out a little. There. At least the hole is somewhat visible there. All right. So I'm going to stop fiddling with that. Okay, so we have this cute little accent on the front. Now let's go to our twine and close this up. And I like to come in through the back. Okay, hold my twine in place, wrap it around the bottom, up to the top, and cut. And tie our little bow. Now, I'm not the best bow tire in the world. Sometimes I like to use doubles or like reverse tweezers to help hold the little knot in place while I tie my bow. Just gives me a second hand that I don't have all the time. Sorry, a third hand. It's a third hand. Get my bow tied and look at that. There we go. Our second little box is complete. I like adding that little something on the flap here because I really like this coffee paper. This is from Stamperia and it is called Coffee and Chocolate. I love this paper. Really, really pretty. There's our second cute little bag. I don't know if I called it a box. I don't know. I may have called it a box, a bag. I don't know for sure, but okay. Anyways, there we go. Project is complete. Let's move on to the final project. Okay, the last one is going to be for 6x6, and we're going to create this cute little mini box. I absolutely adore this. I love the little tag. I just love mini things, and I super love this one. So let's see what we're going to do here. So I'm going to give you the measurements for the 6x6, and I'll use a smaller scoreboard for this. So this one doesn't have an orientation on the pattern, so that's lovely. So we're going to start by scoring at 3/4 of an inch, and then 2 3/4, 3 1/2, and then 5 1/2. And then rotate our paper. I like to turn one turn to the right, and then we'll score at 3/4 and 4 1/2. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to follow along with the template, cut the pieces away, and I'll speed this part up because I'm sure you got the idea by now, and we'll finish this bag up. Okay, for this one, I have a small little scrap that I turned into a little miniature card. So I just folded it in half. I'm going to punch a hole into that right in the corner. And I'm going to attach it to my twine so it just kind of hangs off the bag. I'm attaching it to the top piece here so that if I attach it to here, it could potentially fall to the bottom. So here it's going to stay right there. Let's just move that out of the way for a second, and then we'll put it back. So I'll tie my little bow. My twine's a little loose, but whatever. It is what it is. Okay, so our final little bitty bag project is complete. So super cute. I just love looking at little miniature things. All right. So there you have it, folks. You have 3 different ways to use pattern paper to create beautiful little gift bags using 6x6 paper, 8x8 paper, and 12x12 paper. Okay, that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support as always. You'll find links to the products, if I can find them, in the description box down below. Coming up on screen are some videos I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!